Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in Birmingham. We're here today with you on another show of Parenting Hour for the next hour, inshallah, during this blessed month of Ramadan, when we're going to be talking about something that we should be thinking of most of the time, whether it's Ramadan or not Ramadan, but people, and especially children, who are not in the privilege of having a family and who have to be fostered by others due to different circumstances. And to talk about that this evening, we've got Kameroon with us, who is a social worker, and she's also a counsellor, and she's also working on behalf of the Department of Education in this work, and is going to explain more about this to us. If you have a question, as usual, please ring in on 0121 772 8892. This is a pre-recorded show, but if you do ring in, of course, they will pass on all questions and queries straight to Kameroon. Or if you have an email studio@unityfm.net. Our Luton listeners, thank you for tuning in on 105.1. Also, please email or phone in if you have any queries. And people that are listening on the app or over the internet, also your emails are welcome. Everything will be forwarded to Kameroon to answer you directly if you've got any queries. And we know there's a lot of misconceptions out there. You know, I'm getting messages all the time about is there a family around that can foster a child? Well, I don't think that's how you do it going over WhatsApp. I'm sure that's not how it's done over WhatsApp, but we're going to find out exactly how it is done from the person that knows how and what should be done. And this is why you need to email her or send her email address to people that may be sending out incorrect messages, so we ensure that everybody is getting the correct information, inshallah. So, alhamdulillah, we're here in Ramadan. I hope it's going well for everybody and that you're all getting the blessings of the month of Ramadan, alhamdulillah. And maybe from hearing this something about this evening that might help you to think of doing something else and getting more blessings, inshallah, from Ramadan. So, without any further ado, let me introduce Kameroon, and maybe you can introduce yourself, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you, Sister Kathleen. My name is Kameroon Callum, as you've rightfully said. And yes, I am qualified as a social worker and a counsellor. I wear two hats professionally, as a Fosterline advisor and a counsellor in private practice for Talkwell Counselling. Now, my role in fostering as a Fosterline advisor involves offering quality advice, support and information over the telephone to existing and prospective foster carers across England. Fosterline is funded by the Department for Education and delivered by FosterTalk. We provide confidential, impartial advice, information and signposting on the broad range of issues of concern to foster carers and those interested in fostering. So in order to support them in their role, we aid retention and encourage recruitment of foster carers. So if any listeners are interested in fostering or indeed already fostering and have any concerns or queries, they are more than welcome to contact Fosterline by telephone on 0800 040 7675, Monday to Friday 9am to 5pm, or via our interactive website on www.fosterline.info. Suffice to say, the team at Fosterline is lovely, very knowledgeable, and between us we have over 80 years experience.
Wow, big team there then.
Yeah, we have a mix. We have a good mix as well, so it's not just foster carers, there's senior social workers, foster carers, and so we're covering both angles of practicals and legislation. We offer a high quality of customer service, and we have a wealth of knowledge covering professional and practical aspects of fostering.
And they're from people from all backgrounds, I assume,
yes,
and different faiths as well,
yep,
so they understand cultures.
That's it. I am Muslim, and my colleague is white UK. We've got somebody who's Australian on the line as well, so that we've got various different mix of people who have kind of blended together and offered a wealth of knowledge, and it's a really lovely place to work.
Great, that sounds really good. A lovely place to work. So you've explained who Fosterline is, and very well, mashallah, and you also mentioned FosterTalk. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Okay, well, Fosterline is provided by FosterTalk on behalf of the Department for Education. FosterTalk is an independent not-for-profit organisation, and they are focused solely on providing high-quality independent professional support to members. As an organisation, they offer membership to provide comprehensive support packages that makes a difference to foster carers and the children and the young people they look after. Basically, they have a dedicated team of trained professionals. They have, including a legal advice line, counselling helpline, benefits and tax helpline. So foster carers who are already in the job would really benefit from having support from them. They can, if anybody listening wants to inquire more about that, they're welcome to go online, www.fostertalk.org, or call the telephone number on 01527 836 910.
That's really interesting, all that you're telling us and all this information. So in respect to fostering, is there a need for more carers?
Yes, indeed there is, particularly in the Asian community. We are underrepresented across the fostering profession, and I was hoping through this show that we would be able to raise awareness about fostering and to encourage more Muslim foster carers to come forward. In fact, there is actually an annual event called Foster Care Fortnight. This year it begins from the 14th of May for 2 weeks, where the recruitment of prospective foster carers is encouraged and promoted. So if you have any listeners out there that have been thinking about fostering as a career, but have questions or need help in getting started, we at Fosterline can provide free, confidential, impartial advice and support to help you make an informed decision moving forwards. It is a big commitment, and it's something that you would need to think through because it has to suit not just you but your family. You are opening your home to another child, and that comes with its own complications, so it is definitely a family decision. And we also support existing foster carers, so if anybody out there is currently fostering and haven't heard of Fosterline, hello, we're here. If you have concerns or queries and need advice, you can contact Fosterline as well.
Okay, so we get a lot of questions asked about who can become a foster carer and what do you need and what is the process and what do you need to do. And there is some people that maybe have some time and are able to do it and have the qualifications, if there is qualifications needed, but they don't know. So what's the process of becoming a foster carer?
Okay, so in relation to qualifications, you don't actually need any qualifications as such. You will be offered skills to foster training, and that will be provided by the agency or local authority that you sign up with. What they'll look for is experience of parenting, any kind of learning needs that you might have, and your family dynamics. So they'll look at whether you are suitable to foster. The whole process in terms of how to go about it can take anywhere between 6 and 8 months from start to finish.
Wow. So it's not something that, immediately I feel sympathetic to something happening at the moment. I see children and I want to foster them and it can happen next week. No, it's not like that.
There is a very organised, structured process. And as you can understand, it's the vulnerable children we're talking about. They're placed in care for a reason.
Yep.
We need to be careful with the matching process to ensure that they are placed with suitable carers and have that element of safeguarding at the forefront of our minds. So it's about promoting their identity and matching appropriately so that carers and children are best placed. So in terms of, if we go back to the process, there are 2 stages, and that explains the length of it. The first stage, so say you want to foster, you make a phone call to your local authority, say for example, or an independent agency. They will then arrange to come out and visit you at home, carry out an initial home visit. Once they've visited you at home, they will have a look around your home, talk to you about your family members and your property, and carry out stage 1 checks. Stage 1 checks involve medical references and the DBS checks, which stands for your police checks and history.
Yeah.
Now, that stage is preliminary, basically it's screening. If you pass that stage, you will then be passed on to stage 2, which is the main body of the assessment. It's a series of long, in-depth questions. Some of them can be quite intrusive, so be prepared, and it'll talk you about your history, your parenting skills, your history of being parented. So they'll take you back to your childhood and ask certain questions, and also look at your family style now, your family dynamics, how you manage things if you have children, and how you are impacted by them. So in terms of those 2 processes, once they're collated into what we call a Form F assessment report, You will receive a copy of that to read through and sign. You will then attend panel, and the panel members will have read your report. If they have any queries, they will ask you a few questions, and after that you'll be written to with a response of whether you've been approved or not. So that is, in a nutshell, the process itself. So in terms of it's not a quick fix. It's, as you said earlier, it's very much a structured process. There's a beginning, a middle and an end. And
and can anybody apply?
Yes, I think in terms of applications, as I've mentioned, because there's quite a thorough screening process, if you're not deemed suitable, usually by stage 1 they'll know that and they'll let you know for whatever reason. But we will welcome people to apply and see what happens, because you don't know if you're not suitable until you try. If you've got any questions, feel free to call us at Fosterline. We have a very good frequently asked questions on our website as well, which kind of bust some of the myths around it. Like, for example, people thought that single people can't be foster carers. We've got plenty of single foster carers out there.
Right.
So it's...
What about grandparents?
Grandparents, they've got a wealth of experience, and often some of the best carers are grandparents.
Right, so they're not excluded because of their age?
No.
Okay, that's very interesting. I think our listeners would be interested in hearing about that, because it's these things that you'd think it's for younger people maybe, or people like a mum that's already stay-at-home mum that has children. That's
a stereotypical kind of view.
Exactly, yeah. So it's interesting to break those myths, actually, that people can foster, especially in our Muslim community. Yeah, very good. So there is a long process there from beginning to end. It takes, as you say, a good few weeks, and it can be intrusive, but I think people will be prepared for that if they know, I presume there's financial questions and things like that as well.
Yes, and that will all be addressed during the assessment process. So feel free, if you do undergo a fostering assessment, to ask those questions of your assessing social worker. They'll be able to answer, and we can also support you if you call Fosterline as well. Very
good indeed. So how does prospective carers locate different agencies? You mentioned there's different agencies, and there's things up on your website that we can look at. Is there other agencies as well, or what should they do? Like I'm a parent at home now, I'm listening to this, thinking, oh, that's interesting, I might like to do that. Where do I go?
Okay, so our website is very interactive and very informative. So you've got two options. You can call us directly and have a conversation. You've also got the option of live chat. We have a live chat on our website. But on the website, there's also a Thinking of Fostering page. And on that page, there's a link that says Mapping System. It's in blue on the first page. If you click on that link, it'll open a free text box on the second page, and you enter your postcode, and it'll throw up all of the local authority and independent fostering agencies within your area. So it acts as a good start point. And we always advise to call more than one, so maybe 2 to 3 different agencies or local authorities, simply because it has to be the right fit for you. It's a long process, it's a commitment, and they will have varying policies in respect to fees, allowances, support package, training. So all of that would need to be looked at, and you can check their performance as well on Ofsted, so the Ofsted reports.
Wow. So a potential parent can actually check what organisation they want to go with.
Yes, yeah.
Check what different training, because there is training, which is something that I think parents won't know either, that there's training there for them. So there is training there. And you mentioned finance?
Yes. There's a financial remuneration for foster carers. In terms of amounts, there's national minimum standards exist, and they have a kind of ballpark figure for different parts of the country. Again, they are listed on our website, so feel free to go onto the website and click on the finances page, and it gives you a useful chart where it gives you what the national minimum allowance should be, and many will exceed that limit. So it's good to ask what their fee structure is like, so you can go with the one that suits you.
Wow. So I think we should mention the website and the phone number just so our listeners can have it. And listeners, if you don't have a pen and paper here, we will mention it again later on. But please do try and get a pen and paper to write down this or jot down this.
Okay, so Fosterline can be contacted by telephone on 0800 040 7675 between Monday and Friday, 9am to 5pm. Or via our interactive website on www.fosterline.info, and there are web forms you can complete and ask for a call back, and we'll call you back.
Great. All sounds really good. So there's a lot of help there. A lot of prospective carers can actually find the organisation, the agency that's there, right there for them. Brilliant. So is it best for Muslim carers to come forward for Muslim children, do you think? Or do you have many Muslims coming forward? We hear a lot about Muslim children needing fostering. Is there the Muslim families there for them?
Well, as I mentioned before at the start of the interview, we are underrepresented in the fostering profession. There is a need for more Muslim carers. Indeed, across the board, there's a need for more foster carers right across the board from all walks of life, but particularly in the Muslim faith. So because it's important to match the child as closely as possible to the carer, it's always good because it promotes the child's culture, their faith, their identity, and it gives them a sense of familiarity because the carers are from a similar background. Having said that, there are very good case examples that I'm aware of interracial placements where non-Muslim carers have had Muslim children and been proactive in purchasing prayer mats and Qurans, providing halal foods to meet the child's needs. And as you're aware, each case is unique, as is each carer. So there isn't any hard and fast rule around it. Suffice to say that the matching process is key, and it is very much what suits that child and what suits the carer.
Now that's important, of course, to get that match there, and try and get, if we can at all possible, I suppose, Muslims. I think a lot of the families of those children who are not able to look after for whatever reason they're in fostering, and I'm sure there's a vast amount of reasons, would be more comfortable in knowing they're with a Muslim family and able to look after their faith. Probably, again, if they were from that culture, they'd probably be more comfortable. Because, we are so big as Muslims, mashallah. We stretch from China way over to Morocco and way south as well. So lots of different cultures there. And, if you look at the Indian culture compared to the Turkish culture, I'm just picking a couple of countries, to the Yemen, to Morocco, it is so different. So,
it is.
Yeah.
It's a hot pot, really, isn't it? And that's the beauty of fostering. It's so diverse. Just as the carers are diverse, the children are diverse. So it's really good to have a diverse workforce. The main thing, if we scrape all of that away, is that children are provided with appropriate care in a loving and stable home environment that does respect their cultural and faith needs. That's really the bottom line.
Because we need children not just to be fed and looked after physically, but also emotionally, socially,
psychologically, spiritually.
Yes, exactly.
It's a one big bubble of different things. It's not just we aren't one thing. We are a sum of many parts. So it's just incorporating every part of the life of the child and ensuring that is met.
That's met from everywhere. So whether it's a Muslim, and it could be the other way around. You could have non-Muslim children fostered by Muslim parents.
Yes, and that happens across the board as well, and quite successfully, I might say, as well. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we did have a fostering. We did a show a while ago now, sometime last year, and I did actually have a fostering couple with me. Well, a dad that came in, and he's been fostering for years, and they were very happy as a foster family, and doing what they were doing. Yeah, so it was interesting talking to him, but I don't think there's very many out there. So if you are a foster family and you're listening in to us, it would be nice for you to actually give us a ring in, give us some feedback. How did you join this process? What were the implications for you? What were the things? So we can gather some information, and maybe the next time we bring back Kameroon, you could join us on the show and give us your experience. So please do ring in if you are listening to this. I'm sure you know the number. I'll just repeat it again. It's 0121 772 8892. Great. Gosh, there's a lot to talk about when we're talking about fostering, indeed. So what about fostering asylum-seeking Muslim children?
Okay, that is quite hot on the agenda at the moment, simply because there are so many coming through the system at the moment, and there has been an issue in terms of matching. As you can understand, there aren't that many carers from those backgrounds. So anybody wishing to specifically foster an asylum-seeking child, because that is quite a niche area, should contact their local fostering service, so potentially the local authority in their area, because most children will pass through the local authority to ensure that their needs are met. So those foster carers would, similar to any other foster carer, be subject to a full assessment of their family and home, and in terms of matching, they'll try to match as closely as possible. So if they can't get the culture, they'll get the faith. So if these are Muslim children, they don't necessarily need to be Syrian Muslim, they could be Pakistani Muslim, but essentially it's about trying to get as close a match as possible.
So could a potential couple that were wanting to foster just specify that they wanted to help asylum-seeking Muslim children and not other Muslim children that come into the system for other reasons? Could they just say that, or no, once you're qualified foster, you're expected to be available for everybody?
Yes, that's a good question. I think there's two parts to that. First part is, if you have a preference, always state that at the start of the assessment process. Some agencies and local authorities want you to be flexible and open-minded, and if they think that you're only after that niche, they may not proceed, because it's about knowing that you are able to be flexible and open-minded and be able to care for any child regardless of the background. However, there are some niche agencies that will provide care for specific cultures and faiths. So if that's the case, it may be worth Googling the service that provides specifically a service for faith-based fostering. But in generic terms, most local authorities and agencies will hope to work with carers that are more open-minded and flexible in terms of their approach, because otherwise you could end up being approved but not have placements for a while because nothing comes through that matches. So you're kind of almost doing yourself a disservice as well. So it's, it very much depends on what your needs are. There's no harm in saying it. At the end of the day, you have a preference, you can say that, because if that is your preference. But it's about being as open as possible and stating that at the outset.
I assume when we're talking about asylum-seeking children and children that come from war-torn zones, that those foster carers would be maybe extra assessed or have extra support, because those children are... Okay, the trauma of being removed from family is one like everybody else, but on top of that, they have extra trauma where they saw very serious issues, death in front of them, families being killed in front of them, so they're probably more disturbed again than other children, Do you have extra training and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's very important to recognise the additional challenges that come through for children who are severely traumatised. And, you don't have to come from a war-torn country to be traumatised. There's plenty of homegrown children who've had abuse and neglect. And so it's recognising the signs, knowing your limitations of foster care and spotting your gaps. If you know that you have, a gap in your knowledge or needs additional training, don't feel afraid to ask for that from your agency. If you're already an approved foster carer, say, right, I need training in this area, and maybe this child that I've got in my care could do with a referral for mental health services. Be vocal, because at the end of the day, it's about advocating on behalf of the child as where possible as well, so that the needs are met.
Especially if they came across Europe maybe alone and they could have been exposed to sexual exploitation and things like this. There's a lot of complications there. Yeah.
So it's very important that their needs are looked at and met, because as with any other career, there's challenges and rewards in everyone, just the same as it is in fostering.
Yeah, sure.
But as you know, Islamically speaking, it's a very praiseworthy cause, is fostering.
Yes, mashallah, it is indeed. And we'll come back to that in a bit again, talk a bit more about that. You mentioned earlier about fees and allowances and things like this, which actually I only realised that last year when we had another show on fostering, that foster carers were being paid for their work. Now, I have nothing against it, because of course they're doing a job, but I never thought of it before. It just didn't cross my mind. As like a lot of us that do work, and we do a lot of voluntary work, we get used to just doing voluntary work, and it just never crossed my mind.
No, and that's fine. I think it's because it's an altruistic kind of career, and it is very much a career. It is a job, whether however you look at it, it's something that you're giving your time, your energy to, and it's more and more recognised as that now, whereas before it was seen quite informal. And to ensure that no foster carer is out of pocket because of their caring role, there is a recommended national minimum allowance, and it was introduced by the Department for Education. There is currently no recommended amount for the reward element, but each fostering service will set this separately. But each fostering service, as I mentioned earlier, will have their own policy in relation to fees and allowances. So whoever you choose to go with, ask to see their finance policy, see what that means for you, and you'll get a better understanding if you have a look on our finance pages, because it gives you the national minimum allowance kind of guidelines, if you like, for each part of the country. But yeah, that gives you background reading.
Of course, and that would cover for, I suppose, the food, everything, clothing, everything,
That's right.
as well as kind of the work that you're putting into it. So it's recognising, life is changing, and it is recognising that stay-at-home mums actually are doing a job.
Yes,
Whereas
indeed.
years ago people would say, "Oh, I'm only a mother doing nothing as a profession," but that is big profession.
Of course, it's a lifelong profession. You don't escape it.
Yeah.
Even when the children grow up and go away,
Exactly.
they come back again because they have children and grandchildren. So it is, very much a honourable role, and it's something that if you have the kind of experience and love in your heart and space in your home, it's one of those things that is worth looking into, because at the end of the day, there are plenty of children needing homes.
There is indeed, and actually that brings me on. We were talking about homes, and maybe think about bedroom space, room space, your home, which we'll have to come back to after the commercial break, actually, and ask you about that, because I think that's a big topic. So, listeners, if you're tuned in, we're here talking about fostering. Please do tune in to us after commercial break and bring a pen and paper and write down the numbers and websites we're going to give you, inshallah. So, excuse us for a few minutes while we have to go to this quick commercial break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5, the heart of the city in Birmingham, as they say, but not excluding all our Luton listeners and all the people are listening in all over the world, whether you're on the or on the app at the moment or on the website. It's great that you're all listening in. It's a privilege to have you tuned in each week, and I love meeting people that give us such positive feedback about the shows. Thank you so much, all our listeners, and inshallah Ramadan is going well for you, and that you're remembering me specifically and all the others in here in Unity FM in your dua, inshallah, that we can continue in putting on shows like this for you on a voluntary basis, week by week. Alhamdulillah, we come to try and put together shows that you may be interested in and topics that you're interested in, inshallah. The number is 0121 772 8892. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi. Of course, you know that by now. The email is studio@unityfm.net. And we are talking today about fostering. And we've got Kameroon with us here in the studio. And she has been talking a lot and explaining a lot about the process and who's involved and different agencies and lots of things about Fosterline and giving numbers out and websites out. And before the break, we were actually asking you to get a pen and paper. We will repeat now. I think we should repeat those numbers now and then again at the end of the show, so that if anybody's just tuned in now, or maybe have to leave before the end of the show, that you actually are able to grab those numbers down. So Fosterline, we have a website and a phone number. Can you just repeat them again for us, please?
We do indeed. Okay, so Fosterline is available via telephone on 0800 040 7675, and that's Monday to Friday 9am to 5pm, or via our interactive website on www.fosterline.info. We also have a live chat service or a web form you can complete for callbacks.
So a lot of support there, lots of information there on the website, and people that can help you as well if you ring in or chat online to them. Before the break, we were I was becoming interested about spaces and houses and how much rooms do you have to have, and is there rules around this, because you know lots of people think I can do this, I can foster this other child, I have 3 or 4 children, we can put them, together, we can have bunk beds in this room and we can put them in there, and then I can have a room for this other child that's coming in. Is that the case, or is there certain regulations around this?
Yes, there are. So if I kind of start off with a general overview, most fostering services will prefer you to have a spare bedroom if you are going to foster children over the age of 2 or 3. Although there is no regulatory requirement for foster children over the age of 3 to have their own bedroom, the space in your home will be taken into consideration when you apply to foster, and this will include the availability of a spare bedroom. Now, in terms of regulations, so you've got national minimum Standard 10.6 states that a child over the age of 3 should have their own bedroom where physically possible, taking into account the child's wishes and feelings. Having their own bedroom will generally be more appropriate, particularly if the child has issues around sexualised behaviours or bullying, or if they have specific issues. It's more important that they do have their own space. If you are short of space but still wish to foster, you may consider respite care, also known as short break or shared care. This covers a variety of different types of part-time care. So you could potentially have a child stay over for a few hours a day each week, and that gives families of full-time foster carers a much-needed break. So that's another option if you want to provide some kind of temporary relief. If you do have similar questions to this, we do have very useful frequently asked questions on the top of our website as well that goes through similar kind of questions. So it's always good to have a look.
It is. So if you had a spare room like that, is it okay if having your own children then in a bunk bed in another room?
I think in terms of the rules, you've got policies. Each fostering agency will have their own policy in relation to bedroom space, so that it's always good to check what their policy is. In terms of how you have your own children, ideally if you have 2 children who are of the same sex, that's potentially more suited to sharing, depending on their age, because it's about, usually children start to need their own space post puberty. So if they're like under 10, you've got a sibling, your own children, maybe 2 girls or 2 boys of a younger age, that's a different matter. But when they're slightly older or they're different genders, it's about being sensible, because any fostering assessment will take into account your whole family and look at bedroom space and the reality of it and practicalities of it.
Of course, and bathrooms and all of this. So there's a
lot to factor in. Yeah.
Yes, and I suppose if you wanted to have a choice of girls, you can have a choice of whether you want girls over boys or boys over girls.
You can state your preference. Yes, it's always good to do so at the outset, as I mentioned, because any fostering agency assessing you will want to know that you are, as I mentioned, open and flexible. If they feel that you have a preference, they will put that into the assessment, and that will factor in terms of the matching process when they do consider children for you.
Oh, which is good again, because maybe if you had a family of all girls, you might feel more comfortable of having a girl there, or vice versa. If you had boys, you might say, well, a boy would fit in here, he'd play with the children and play football together with the similar interests.
Yeah.
So that probably, especially for our Muslim families, I think they would be thinking this way, rather than having a family of boys and then bringing in a girl. They might be a bit worried about that. Yeah,
it's understandable. The dynamics would definitely change.
Which is good. Actually, which leads me into thinking about some of the things that I've heard about in the past of the implications of why Muslims don't particularly come forward, is that some practicing women, especially, that are wearing hijab, and they are fostering, and they didn't understand that they could specify that they wanted girls, and they just thought, I'm going to have a foster child, and sometimes these children are boys coming in, and they think, how can I manage that? How can I have a boy in the house and then I have my hijab and this boy is growing up and maybe a young man, and I can't go around all day from the time I get up to the time I go to bed with my hijab on.
Yeah, there are practicalities to bear in mind, and at the end of the day, whatever suits your family is what you need to be looking at, because it is a family commitment fostering. So yes, you can make preferences, you can ask for that. It all depends on the matching process, and indeed before a child is placed with you have a kind of a pen profile, so you'll be able to say yes or no depending on the information you receive beforehand. So you'll be offered information about the child, and if you think the child wouldn't fit, you can say no. If you feel the child would fit, you can say yes, so that you do have a choice in the matter.
Oh, great. So there is a choice there of gender and age?
Potentially, yes, yeah. It's all that kind of preference stating should be done at the start, though, of the assessment, so it's kind of fed in through the assessment and everyone's aware.
Yeah. And then I'm just thinking of a family that, have a child and they've say, fostered him from the age of 4 or 5, and he's been with them for many years, and he's grown up, and they've grown attached, and he's become part of the family, and then they come to a stage where he is growing into maturity, and they're saying, I can't leave this young man go. He is part of our family now. You know, is there a way of them adopting that child then? You know, because I know it's a little bit different in Islam to legally here we can adopt, and in Islam, you know, they should keep their own name, but still we have to go through the legal process here. But they may not. I wonder, is there a way of them doing that to keep them in the family? And
yes, indeed there is. You've got plenty of foster carers do go on to adopt the child simply because of those reasons. They become attached. They are very much part of the family. And there's a process. So if you're an existing foster carer and you would like to look into adopting your foster child, it would be a discussion that you'd have with the local authority and look at making the application to adopt. And there's a separate process for that and a separate assessment for that as well. So, you know, don't be shy to ask your local authority social worker what that process is and how to go about it. If at the outset you want to adopt, so say you're looking into fostering but you're doing it with a view to adopt in the future, that kind of certainty is there is a process called foster to adopt. And it's something that you can actually ask to be assessed as via the local authority when you first enter the assessment process, and that will be a slightly different process because it's more long term.
Yes, so that might be somebody that aren't able to conceive or have their own children for whatever reason, and decide that yes, we maybe like foster and then adopt a child, maybe looking for a baby initially with the intention of adopting. So that's or for other reasons, but that could be it. Just trying to think of a family indeed in my mind to help explain to our listeners what could that be. So lots of different ways of people wanting to adopt, and lots of different information about it. And I'm going to read something that I've received recently, very, very recently actually, and it was something that I would like to get your opinion on. It says adopt a Syrian orphan. So it immediately kind of. The title of it made my heart kind of just ease. Okay, what's going on here? We all need to be helping Syrian orphans. You know, Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters in Islam. My name is, I won't mention the name. I'm a volunteer with a charity, so I won't mention the charity either. We work together to welcome families who have fled from Syria, who are currently in refugee camps. Lately, we have started welcoming families from France, from Calais, the camp in Calais in France. We're looking for Muslim families to foster underage children who have arrived from these camps after their families were killed. There is no one to help them but Allah and those benevolent enough to take them in. I request you sisters to share this message to the biggest member of the Muslim families you can, because we can't want the fate of the children to be in the hands of families of different faiths to the Muslim faith. And then it ends with a number and a name and Assalamu alaikum. So it's a very heart-grabbing message. People reading, and I know there's other similar messages that I have come across that have been passed around. Very heart-grabbing. You think, I want to help something, but after all these questions that you've answered, that I've asked you, now that our listeners know that it's not as easy as picking up this and responding to this person over the number and saying, here I am, I'm ready to foster. So how would you answer something like this?
Well, to be fair, I'm quite concerned about that message, because it shows that there's some activity that's going on under the radar of the police and the local authority. As you know, there are safeguarding procedures in place for a reason. These children coming through are vulnerable, highly vulnerable, and there could be a criminal offence being committed, as well as children who are being moved around outside of the radar of the local authority. So where's the safeguarding? You know, there's nobody assessing these potential foster carers, if you can call them that, because there are people coming forward to care for the children. There needs to be a boundary around this. And as I mentioned before, there's a very rigorous process to assess foster carers. Nobody has the right to be a foster carer. There's a reason for the assessment process, and it filters through to quality carers. It's not suited to everybody, and unless you've been through that process, that kind of assessment process, and have been approved as a safe, suitable, appropriate carer, you could be doing more harm than good. It's quite unsafe practice by the sounds of it, what's going on there, and I think we would probably need to look into the matter further. So I would be taking this information back to my management team as well.
So listeners, if you do get messages like that, you know that these are not proper messages, and if you wanted to become a foster carer, and if your passion was aroused by some messages like this, please go through the proper processes, because if it was, you can just imagine if it was the other way around, and God forbid, and to happen the other way around, but if it was a child that you knew, you'd want them to be in a family that was properly scrutinised, that had all the procedures in place, that had the DBSs, that were safe to leave your precious child with. So this is why these things are in place, to protect children and protect all children.
Indeed.
And we have very great processes here in the UK, which we're very lucky to have those processes here. And of course, as Muslims, we live our lives abiding by UK law.
Yes.
It's something that our Islam tells us to do, to lead our lives according to the country we're living in.
Yes.
So we have to abide by those laws of the country we're living in. And something that we need to go through. So yeah, it's if you are aroused by any of these messages, what we're saying, and what Kameroon is saying, is pick up the phone to ring that number we're going to put out again on Fosterline, or go on the website so that you know exactly and can get the correct information on what to do.
And if you're concerned, having received one of these messages, feel free to contact the police as well, because potentially there could be some child trafficking going on. We don't know. It's very important to safeguard children at all levels, and at the end of the day, if there is something that you feel is not quite right, the local authority and the police are the departments that you would need to refer to first and foremost, particularly if you feel there's a safeguarding or child protection concern. Okay,
brilliant. That's really good advice there for all of us that may receive these messages. Thank you. And what are those numbers again, just to...
Okay, so Fosterline for any fostering inquiries, we are available on 0800 040 7675, Monday to Friday, 9am to 5pm, and via our interactive website, www.fosterline.info.
Wonderful. You know, we've talked here now for about 3/4 of the show, and I can see the passion you bring with you, the amount of knowledge, mashallah, you have, the things at your fingertips there that I throw a question at you and you're able to answer it straight away. Obviously, you like your job, yeah? Do you like it or enjoy it?
Indeed, yes.
Tell us what you enjoy about it.
It's no 2 days are the same. It's a pleasure to work within the staff team that I have. I'm an amazingly supportive team manager. I have wonderful colleagues. We all bounce off each other, and where there's a learning gap, we'll find it and we'll plug it, and we'll all work together towards a better quality service. We're constantly up on our CPD, constantly learning new legislation, new policies, procedures. All of that is all, kind of part and parcel of our training as Fosterline advisors, because at the end of the day, we are out there public facing, providing information for the Department for Education, so we need to be 100% spot on with the information we give, and it has to be confidential, impartial, and basically accurate. Yeah. So that's that part of it. But in terms of the kind of fun part of it, it's enjoyable simply because it's a very warm team. As I mentioned before, we all get on. I'd see it more as a family. Kind of, as opposed to a team. And there's not many places of work that you can call that. There's a real sense of camaraderie between us and support. If one of us is unsure of something, the other person will find out for us. So there's always that kind of ongoing learning between us and support. So yes, very much.
In a difficult area, it's, you talk about it as a family. and this is difficult, working with foster children that have gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of other things in their lives. It's really a hard area to be working in. But you're there together, you feel you're working together, and
I think it helps also having the kind of empathy towards the callers as well, because some callers do have challenges in terms of calling up distressed because maybe they've attached to the foster child and their foster child is leaving because they're 18 or for whatever reason, and having the counselling skills as with my other hat as a counsellor, it helps when I'm on the lines, because I'm able to offer that warmth and that kind of reassurance that that they've kind of moved through a process and been resilient enough to kind of move forwards. So that always helps as well.
Oh, good. So a counsellor as well. I wonder, what do you do to de-stress yourself when things... you have a very stressful job and things, and you're doing counselling as well. So how do you de-stress? How do you relax?
Okay, so in terms of a work perspective, we always have regular supervisions, and we do come off the line every now and then while a colleague's on, and we'll have a kind of debrief if we have a difficult phone call. As with any job, it's important that we have a support structure in place. In terms of personally, I like to do a bit of escapism, so I like my spa weekends away. So every now and then, if I get tired or feel a bit drained, I'll contact my friend and we'll just disappear. So hubby has the kids, and I'm off somewhere sunning myself, either on a hot weekend away somewhere or in a local spa having my face done and my massage. So that's my outlet, if you like.
Which is important, actually. We all need those outlets. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of parents listening today, and especially mums that are there doing that very important job of raising their children and forget about themselves, don't treat themselves. I wonder, listeners, mums especially, when was the last time you bought yourself something?
Good question. Everyone's, as mothers, as you know, as we are both mothers, we are so busy looking after everyone else. Who's looking after us? So unless we do that for ourselves and find that me time, we could be doing ourselves a disservice, because if we're run down, we're no good to anyone. So, it's a sunnah as well. Our Prophet, peace be upon him, says, you tie your camel, you look after yourself, and then you look after the other people. And that's not being selfish, it's having self-care, because at the end of the day, if you're run down and you can't cope and you can't manage, then everything else goes around you. But if you're strong and healthy and happy in yourself, you will continue, and that will emanate from you, and you will be able to continue doing your role as a mother, and potentially, if you're a foster carer, as a foster carer, and move forward in life, because you've got that support network as well. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think plenty of mothers will just trudge along mindlessly thinking, I've got this, I'll do this, and there's so much support out there. Just ask.
Exactly, and especially now, if you're in Ramadan, you might have even more burdens on top of you, trying to do extra prayers and try to prepare the food, etc. So it would be good that maybe you think of, what can I do to treat myself after Ramadan for Eid? Something for myself, some little thing for myself, even if I'm going to go to the hairdresser. That's
it, planning a treat. It's good to plan something to look forward to, because life can get quite mundane, same old thing every day. It's good to have that something special. A treat. So that's for all, especially all mums out there. I know dads also need a treat, because we talk here on Parenting Hour about parenting, so we don't just talk about mothering. But mothers around this time of the year, especially I think in Ramadan, because it's hard getting up early, getting children to school. Life goes on, and still at the same time you want to do extra. You want to do extra prayers. You want to stay up late at night time to try and pray Taraweeh if you can. You're fasting during the day. It's hot. You're maybe not able to get enough water in the night time. You're tired. So it's really, there's a lot on poor mums. Yeah, it is indeed, and that's why we need to look after ourselves and each other.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, last couple of minutes left of the show. Is there any tips that we can give, like in summary, to our listeners about Fosterline and fostering in general? And if you can just pick out a few tips for them. I know one, definitely go onto that website, because that's something I'm going to do and see what's on that website.
Okay, so in terms of the website, I can follow on from that. We do actually have a fostering quiz on the website as well. It's on the Thinking of Fostering pages. So if you're at the stage of shouldn't I, there is a useful quiz, and basically it helps you to decide as well. It just prompts you, gentle prompters. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? What's happening for you at the moment? And you can kind of go through that systematically, and it will give you an indication of whether you're ready, or prepared to foster. So that's an interesting tool on the website as well.
And that's
www.fosterline.info.
.info. Have you got that? .info. It's an unusual one. Fosterline.info. Great. Yeah.
And in terms of the whole profession, just remember at the end of the day, it's like, if you're already a parent, it's like caring for your own children. There's just a few more bits involved that you just need to work with other professionals. So there are other aspects, but a child is a child, and all they want really, if you scrape away all of the bureaucracy, is a loving home, to feel valued, to feel cared for, and just to be loved. Really, that's all they want. All children want is the safety and approval of their loved ones, of their guardians or their carers, and that's pretty much bottom line.
Wow, you've summarised that really well, mashallah, mashallah. And it's true, it's true, and we should be out there, and I hope after listening to the show that we have interested or sowed the seed for some parents to actually go on your website, make those phone calls and see what they can do. And inshallah, in this blessed month, if you make an intention to do something, Allah will help you doing it. You put one arm forward or a hand forward, Allah will come with an arm. One step forward, Allah will come running to you, inshallah, to help you to do it. So if it is your intention, inshallah, Allah will help you and guide you in this. So, mashallah, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Would you believe we've come to the end of the time already? Doesn't it go very quickly?
It does indeed. It's flying.
Yeah, mashallah. So, listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope, inshallah, Ramadan is going well for you, and that you're availing of all the blessings of this blessed month, alhamdulillah. If you do want to ask any questions and you've not been able to take down the numbers or the website, you can always, as usual, either email studio@unitfm.net or ring in the studio 7728892, and of course everything will be passed on to Kameroon. But I hope, inshallah, you found this very beneficial, and I certainly did, and I've learned a lot this evening, and we look forward for you to tune in next week for another show, inshallah. Please don't forget us in your dua. I'd like to say salam to you, Kameroon. Thank you for coming in. Inshallah, Ramadan will continue for you also, and may you gain all the blessings of Ramadan, inshallah.
Thank you, and Ramadan Mubarak to all of the listeners.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.